Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome and welcome back, everybody.
Hey, hey, hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And this is Ben
on Spoiled Rotten.
on Night Shield.
Boom. Well, I mean, there's some booms in this movie. There's some explosions. We are doing Madam Web, the latest in Sony's attempt to trick you and actors into thinking they're part of the MCU.
And to maintain that licensing deal that they have with Marvel and not
Yeah.
lose it.
Well,
That's why this movie is here.
yeah, it does. I know Dakota Johnson did a joke where she was like, "It's like AI made this movie for your boyfriend," but it really did feel at times like it was written by AI. And and I know she left her agency like 48 hours after the first trailer came out.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah. I think there are some actors that genuinely think like, "Oh, I'm in a like MCU movie," and then
Yikes.
probably don't find out till later. Like I remember during the strike, she was trying to talk about this movie. She's like, "Yeah, I just did a Marvel," and Sean Penn was like, "Hey, you can't talk about anything. We're doing a strike." But like, yeah, I think she really thought she was in an MCU movie.
That's wildly embarrassing.
And I know that we'll talk about the movie. I just trying to do some table setting here for why I feel like this movie shouldn't have been made. I know they also were like, this is going to be tied to Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man. That was the point.
Yikes.
And then they were like, oh shit, it's set in 2003. They went to a big deal of asking Beyonce to be able to use her poster and everything. Yeah. I'm like, that's not even like, the big thing here is like Britney Spears Toxic. So I don't even know why you would tie it to the Beyonce release. Like, and then they're like, obviously that doesn't work if it's Tom Holland or if it's Andrew Garfield for obvious reasons we'll get into as we discuss this movie. But then they're like, maybe it's Tom Holland, and then like everything Tom Holland related to these adjacent movies, it just didn't happen. Also, wouldn't have worked because Tom Holland couldn't possibly have been born in 2003.
Yeah.
So then they just had to remove all of the major Spider-Man stuff that was in this movie, and then it leaves you with
including
why
the action.
They put any Spider-Man stuff in this.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, so this movie is about what's her name, Cassandra Webb. I mean, yeah, she's a main character, but it really feels like the person pushing this movie along is Ezekiel Sims, who was poor and he will never let you forget it, but now he's rich and he keeps having visions of these three girls killing him. Well, they're women at the time they're killing him.
Yeah, but teenagers during the entire course of the movie. That is the important thing.
He keeps seeing these spider women killing him.
Yeah.
Which the movie never really tells me why he would be afraid of that, given what he's capable of doing.
Oh, but no, didn't you remember that monologue he went through after he had sex with that woman? He just wakes up and he goes into that monologue. I mean, that was fantastically sarcastically great.
My question.
That doesn't. It's just like it doesn't make sense because he's just like, oh, I just keep having this dream every single night of my life, and I'm like, that's it. That's the driving force. He's worried
these three people will kill him.
Yep.
And Cassandra Webb can see the future, so she knows how to stay a little bit ahead of him.
Yep.
And is forced throughout the movie. Like, it's one of those things where Dakota Johnson, as an actor, for the most part, to me, feels like she doesn't want to be a part of anything she's in.
I agree.
When her character actively doesn't want to be a part of it, it's really not a good mix for me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Madam Web does not want to be in this movie as a character, not just the actor. The character is actively like, I don't want to do this. Just let your parents deal with this the whole time until the end, where she all of a sudden is like, they're my daughters. Like that is what I'm assuming they're getting at with the whole
Yeah.
they're mine. But anyway,
Yeah.
uh,
It's the trauma bond. It's very real for Cassandra
I'm
Webb.
gonna be honest. I don't think they were trying to do trauma bond. I think a bunch of stuff got cut where you actually got a sense that she just felt like, oh, I see what my responsibility is like because I see my best friend Ben Parker taking on responsibilities.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a huge that's giving it so much grace.
No, I'm just saying I understand how she could get. I'm just saying the movie is not interested, like it's not interested in most things, in like giving you anything. Like it's
Yeah.
just like, yeah, it's whatever, man. It's the beats. I know other people have said it feels like one of the old superhero movies we used to get, and that's true, but like not
Is that a good
not
thing or a
good.
bad thing? Yeah, that's a
It's just a
bad
bad
thing.
thing.
It's a very bad thing, as far as I'm
Um,
concerned.
so yeah, that's the point of the movie. Like that's what's going on here. But I think I told you this earlier, and I've been telling
Mhm.
people. I feel like at one point the movie was actually going to be more like a Terminator thing, where um, Cassie, and I'm assuming she would enlist the help of these future Spider Women,
Mhm.
try to protect Mary Parker from being killed because
Yeah.
she's going to give birth to Peter Parker, this like Spider Man.
Yep.
And then I guess when they were like, we can't really do Spider-Man stuff, they're like, well, we'll just keep it because we've got Adam Scott playing Ben Parker, so we can't get rid of that, even though it has little to nothing to do with what's actually happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And we got
Um,
Emma Roberts playing Mary Parker.
yes,
So
another big get. I don't mean to diminish that. I understand that there is a
yeah.
fan base for Emma Roberts,
Oh
but
yeah, absolutely.
they can't even use her in the marketing. So it's like, I don't. Who is this
It's
for?
yeah. Who is this for? It's so
Like
I
you could
like
go to
how
IMDb and know that she's in it as Mary Parker. Like that's ruined for you like a year before the movie comes out. But like
right.
not everyone goes to IMDb, so I'm just like, oh, like what is? Funnily enough, I knew Emma Roberts was in this, but I was like, oh, Mike Epps is in this. Cool. Like I like Mike Epps, and then he dies. But like,
Yep.
but I was just like, yeah, I don't. You can't even use Emma Roberts in your marketing, I guess, because you want this to be some kind of secret, but it doesn't mean anything to the movie because she's just in a different movie.
Yeah.
She's just doing. I mean, she's in the movie they wanted to do but couldn't do because they fumbled the Spider-Man of it all.
Yeah. It's just it's so weird because there's so much about this that like it doesn't change anything, but it's also like, wait, did it have to be a radioactive spider? Because apparently it's just a breed of spiders that would do exactly what would have given Peter Parker his powers too. And there's like a whole tribe of people in the Peruvian
Well,
rainforest
these
that
guys
have these
don't have.
powers.
I guess that's seeing things in the future is the Spider Sense, but it
It is
seems
spider
like they were
sense,
trying to be distinctly different from Spider Sense.
which is weird because it's just like, okay, I get how Cassandra gets the powers because she gets bit
Oh
while
yeah,
she's still in the womb in
we
the
should just say
delivery and
yeah,
all
like
that.
that's what happens. Her mom was
Yeah,
in the Amazon researching spiders.
because she was
She,
going to have a genetic disorder
yes,
that born that all this and
and could give her like months or years of life, but no long term things. So
yeah,
she went the whole movie, which I didn't know this, hating her mom
yeah, I
until
didn't know that either.
she gets the information of like, no, your mom went to the Amazon to save you.
Yeah,
Um, and then so then she's good at being Madam Web now that she doesn't hate her mom, which again wasn't clear before they said it.
yeah, it was never
She
a
was
thing that was
making.
holding her back.
In fact, my favorite moment in the movie is when she's at the baby shower and they're like, okay, who didn't write a favorite memory of their mom? And she like awkwardly talks about how her mom's dead. And she's like, actually, like died in childbirth. No disrespect to you, like probably won't happen to you. Like
Yeah,
that was the funniest stuff to me. And then I'm like, but that's not the vibe of the movie. That just
no,
happened
it's
in
not.
one scene, and then we never get to any type of like interesting thing about Cassandra again.
Yeah, I mean the only
But like
thing that we
it
get from
seemed like it was
that.
just a thing she knew. Like yeah, like my mom made a mistake and went to the Amazon instead of taking care of me, which I understand. Like the other thing I understand about responsibility and trying to
Mhm.
grow up with the teenagers she's with. I understand how that can be read as that's resentment to her mom, but I don't want to spend the whole time bashing Dakota Johnson. I've seen her in things that I think she's good in. This isn't one of them, and I said it from the trailer. Like she's miscast. She does not have snarky leading woman energy. Like she
No, she
can't.
does not.
I know she is snarky, but I don't think it's there's still that it factor of like a lead that can be snarky instead of just like, oh yeah, she's like the snarky best friend.
Yeah, she
Um,
doesn't like. I like what you said about her not wanting to be in this movie because I'm like, yeah, she does. Like, it felt like the whole movie was moving because of the mom and Ben Parker, and then all of a sudden we have to like leave him behind for her to do her own thing, and you're like, oh, the whole movie feels like a B side quest when it's like, no, this is
no,
the
this is
actual
the movie.
movie,
Like
and
she
it's
needs to
so
protect
weird.
these girls that she does not want to have to be around,
Exactly,
and it's
and she
like,
makes terrible decisions while doing it.
well,
It's like,
this is the
what?
other thing I don't get. Like, there's a moment where it's been established, like, no, you can't leave them alone. They're teenagers. Something bad's gonna happen,
Yes.
and then she leaves, but then like wakes up like she never left, and so I'm like, the way they show her powers in this movie is kind of just like, I get it. They're not trying to create any sense of like this is how it works. It just
Mhm.
happens, and I'm just gonna go with it during the movie. I'm not at all going to try and dissect how her powers work because the movie isn't really interested in that.
Yep.
They're just like, no, she has powers and she doesn't know how to use them, and it's like, okay, got it. But I was just like, so did she have like a flash forward and all that stuff happen, or because the other thing is she gets like to redo things sometimes. Again, if she was more in control of her powers, I'm sure it would work better because the trailer makes it seem like she can control it. Like the first trailer is the diner scene where it makes it look like, okay, I died, let me try it again, but she's not in control of that during the movie. It
No.
just happens, and it doesn't even have to be that she dies that makes things reset. Like,
Yeah.
during that baby shower scene, it just resets for no reason.
Yeah.
Like she goes through it again when she's getting her oxygen taken. It just goes through it again,
Yeah.
and then just even when she before Mike Epps dies, she's seeing Mike Epps die a bunch of times, and you're like, I don't get why this is happening or how this is happening, and the movie's not going to help. So I'm just like, all right, sure. It just
Yeah.
happens.
I wish there was some visual indication on screen that this is not the real time, like this is just in her head or this is her power working or something. No, they did nothing like
'Cause
that,
it
and I'm
does
just
things like
constantly
that.
confused.
I'm not saying you're wrong.
No,
I agree
yeah.
with you 100%. They
Mhm.
don't do anything to help you, but they do things sometimes where it's like, look at this web that was formed from like this broken glass, and then she has visions, but that's not consistent, and it doesn't really matter. Like, I agree with you. Like, it does
Yeah.
not help you at all. So then it just made me be like, all right, then I don't care. I'll just
Yeah.
go with it. Whenever it
Yeah.
happens, it happens.
Because I assume you're talking about the first time where she gets trapped in the car and she hits her head on the glass and she like, and you
But
know,
it
all that
happens
kind of
at
stuff.
Mary Parker's house as well at some point. And it
Exactly.
happens in her apartment. I think it happens
Yeah.
like 3 times that they do the like web formed out of a broken glass. Because like the
Yeah.
bird hitting it and some
Yep.
car had a broken glass. And then, yes,
Mhm.
the first time she goes into the water.
Yeah, which is silly to me because I'm like, I try to be like, okay, are they trying to say that this is like, she webs into a different dimension with the glass separating? Like, is that symbolism? Nope, there's literally nothing. There's no
It's just a
consistency
visual
there.
cue that they forgot to keep for every time she does it.
Exactly. And I thought like at first I was like, oh, okay, she only gets this power when she sees people around her about to die. Like
Yeah.
that's what it is, or herself about to die. She gets that. And like you said, and I like that you point this out because I thought in the trailer when she's like, let's try that again, when she gets stabbed in the stomach, I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah,
That actually kind of makes sense. No, none of that was in the
that's
the actual movie. She doesn't go like, let's try that again. She just sees this whole flash forward for a sequence, and then all of a sudden she hits him with a car. And I'm just like, wait, hold on. This is the biggest part of the movie that I was like, Ezekiel Sims's character has the full fledged spider venom that
I
gives
was
him
going
this.
to ask you about that because I don't
Yeah.
think he does. Like,
No, he does. He absolutely does.
why wouldn't he just look to the future? Like, he's the whole
See,
the whole
that's
point
what I'm
is,
saying.
but that's what I'm saying. I don't think he does. I
But
think
no,
what they
like-
were saying was I think they actually say in the movie,
Yeah.
he has powers, but like because he stole this spider, he's just more cursed than he is one of us.
Yeah, the Peruvian guy in the rainforest, he was like, "Oh, he stole the powers, therefore he's cursed with this image." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, sure. That makes sense for as much as I'm willing to give it to a sense to, but it by all accounts, he had the original spider that the mom caught and therefore has the venom. So I'm just like, wait, wouldn't his powers be stronger than her powers? Because her powers were conceived in the womb like 5 minutes before she was born. And I'm like, okay, she got like an ounce of that like spider venom that gives him powers and all that kind of stuff. She's way weaker than he is. And the movie even goes to say like, oh yeah, she doesn't have any of the powers. She doesn't have like the flippy stuff. She just has the foresight. And I'm like, but are they trying to make it a sense of like, oh, if she didn't have all those other things, this one sense gets stronger? No, they didn't do that at all. So to me, I'm like, Ezekiel Sims has literally all the same powers and more that she has, but is
I don't
way
think
less
that's a future
effective.
thing. The
I
movie,
think he does.
I don't, because then the movie makes less sense than it already is, and I don't think they made that mistake.
But the
I
future
don't-
thing
I
to
think-
me is the dream that he keeps recurring, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
It's
but
like,
what I'm saying is like that's a dream for like 10 years out. She's not looking 10 years out.
mhm.
And it's the only thing he has that's like precognition.
Yes, and that's why
So
I
don't,
was saying.
So I don't think it's. I think that's just the curse thing they're talking about.
And that's what's weird to me because I'm like, that's why I was saying, like, I think what the movie was trying to do and not successful at it, and this is me meeting it more than halfway. The idea of like, oh, she doesn't have the other powers, so her future sight is way more powerful than everyone else. And here's the other thing too. The guy in the Peruvian rainforest, he was just like, oh yeah, this is like your power once you learn to control it. I'm like, wait, do you so you know everything about her right now in this
That's
mutation?
something. He is
It's
someone
so
who has
weird.
all of it, so he
Yeah.
can say confidently, "Your daughter's gonna come back, and when she does, I'll have the answers for it." Like he knows all of that. That
Yep.
all makes sense. You see him do the La Rana stuff
Yep.
like, in the trees. He is like pure. I have everything. I think
Yep.
the movie was like this guy got the strength stuff, like he could do the climbing and the strength stuff,
Mhm.
and now we're cursing him with this vision of his death. I don't think he got everything, just like she didn't get everything.
That's weird because at no point did Ezekiel Sims interact with the guy in the rainforest or that tribe. He's just left. He just straight up killed those people and left. And I'm like,
Yeah, no,
This-
but they saw him. They made a point. Like I thought they
I
were going to
guess.
attack him. They were like,
That's
they,
what I thought,
They observed him and then made the right choice and were like, let's help this dying woman instead of chasing this guy.
yeah, that's 100% true. They had like, I mean, let's forget that the fact that they had like 5 people like capable of running.
That's the
Like,
thing. I don't. The way it's edited, I don't know if it's 5 people or just the one guy that they poorly because there's a lot of poor edits in this movie.
100%.
Yeah,
I assume that there was multiple of them.
but I mean, there must be because that's the whole point. But I feel like if you talk to the director, she might be like, it's only just the one guy.
And
they're
that's
dealing
that's the weird thing because I'm like, okay, well then when they're in the rainforest and like the Peruvian guy that I'm talking about, because the movie doesn't go to name him, I'm like, okay, they show you a couple different designs of that costume. So to me, I'm like, there has to be like at least 3. So one person could take Mary Parker, like the mom back and whatever, and then the other 2 could track the guy. No, they're just like straight up, oh, we're gonna leave him behind. He's got the spider and all that kind of stuff. And we're gonna go here. He's got one of our magic spiders, and I'm like, that's weird. It's
Yeah.
so weird.
Yeah, I agree. So so there's these 3 kids. It takes so long for them to connect her to these 3 kids. Like, yes, she interacts with them early on, but then
Yep.
they're just not a factor because, as you said, it becomes more about Ben and Mary Parker.
Yep.
And from the beginning of the movie, I'm just like, all right, she needs a mentor, or she needs to just already know how to use her powers and be mentoring these kids. This movie
Yep.
isn't working with everyone trying to figure out what's going on. Like,
Mhm.
someone needs to know. And I guess I'm full of shit because when she's like, yeah, I gotta go to Peru, I was like, no, I just want this movie to be done. I don't want you to go to Peru. I
Yeah.
don't want to prolong this any more than it needs to. Luckily, the movie was like, it's literally like she went across the street. Don't worry
Yeah.
about it. She's just there and then she's back.
Yeah, it's super fast. It's like, I'll be gone for a weekend. And she's literally gone for a weekend. And I'm like, this is
Well,
so
she said
weird.
a week, but it felt more like a weekend.
Yeah, 100%. Because like it just so happens that she lands in Peru and goes, well, I guess she had the journal with her, so she did know where to go, that she had the coordinates.
They do
But
a
I'm
good
like,
job of establishing that she would know roughly where to go. She's got pictures. She's got a map. She's
Yeah.
got her mom's diary.
so it wasn't like, oh, she landed in the downtown Peruvian airport. And
No,
there
they show you
So,
that she clearly
yeah.
took like a chartered plane to
Yeah.
like
They
where she
they
needed
go to the extent of that to explain it, but then the idea of like, oh, we have the guy in the Peruvian place, he's now wearing like just regular clothes instead of the previous like suit thing that he had that was made of thorns or whatever it was. And I'm just like, this is so weird. It's so weird. Yeah.
So yeah, these three girls played by
Sydney
actors.
Sweeney, Isabella Merced, and Celeste O'Connor playing
Yeah.
Sydney playing Julia Cornwall, Isabella playing Anya Corazon, and Celeste playing Maddie Franklin. It's
To be honest with you, I don't know these characters. Like Sydney
neither do
Sweeney's
I.
suit looked familiar,
Yeah,
but like the
that's a
movie,
Spider Woman suit. That's the
well, they're all
suit that.
Spider Woman. But like
No, I
that's
mean
the thing. I don't
that's
know them.
yeah,
The movie tells you what they're like if they were just in a slasher movie. But
Yep.
there's no. I don't feel like they do a good job of laying groundwork for you knowing them as the Spider Women they're clearly depicting from the comics.
yeah,
Like as I said, they just feel like teens in a slasher movie, which the movie doesn't even fully embrace that. Like
yes,
it could have been that as well, but didn't really want to go there either. But so I don't know them from the comics, and I don't feel like the movie was like. Everyone has said this already. By the time you're hearing our episode, you're gonna know. Like they literally are in two dream sequences. They are not like it's not a movie where like they finally come together at the end and they're all suited up and they
Yep.
fight the final battle. It's literally he dreams about them killing him, and then at the end of the movie, there's a shot of them in their suits and just
and that's a
terrible
future.
web scene.
Yeah, and that's a future far projection that you're
Yeah.
like, oh, this movie's calling it
Yeah,
big,
like the
thinking
movie
it's gonna
ends
get a
with
sequel.
Madam Web just being like, "Oh, don't worry, you'll get powers." And again,
Yeah.
it doesn't explain why them or like how, other than if you know them from the comics, which then I guess it's just assumed you know each of their stories.
Yep.
But the movie isn't interested in teasing that out. It's just like it's them. You know them by name,
Yep.
and they're gonna be here, and basically saying the same thing all the time. Like you're rich, your dad does not want you, and they just drop a heavy "my dad got deported" thing, and I'm like, so
Oh,
we're not even
yeah,
gonna dig
that
into
was
that either. Like that's
huge.
just a thing. All of them have heavy things. Don't get me wrong.
Yep.
But it's the movie is so just like they're gonna grow up to be Spider Woman and kill Ezekiel Sims.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great. Can we move on from it? Like everyone is stuck in the same thing of like, Madam Web, I don't want responsibility. These three kids, we're alone, and Ezekiel Sims, I'm rich, but I used to be poor. So
Yeah.
that's that. That's all you're gonna get from these characters.
Yep. Yep.
And the woman from Girls is like Ezekiel Sims' sidekick, who he threatens with death at one point, and I was just like, I honestly feel like it would probably be better to just get this guy to kill you than live this life. Like this
Yep.
is nothing. This is terrible. What's that? Because they try to give her some moral thing of this is why I don't think he has the power. Is that his whole thing is I need to steal tech to be able to like visualize where they are. It's not like he can just see where they'll be and go there. He needs to literally have sex with this woman and poison her so that he gets the passcode to her tech, and then his sidekick has to just be on the tech the whole time, being like, "Oh, they're over here now."
Yeah. It's terrible. It's a terrible, and you're reminded it's 2003, which is why it's like, wait,
Because that's his whole thing. It's like, "Oh, this is gonna be big later," and then we're all like, "Yeah, okay, great, yes,
yeah,
the government
TSA is real, you know,
surveying
like,
everyone." Yes,
yeah,
yes.
and it's just like, oh, we have this brand new tech that no one apparently like was alerted that got destroyed, and the president of this company who leaked out the password is dead, and no one realized. I'm just like, what is happening here? There's no motivator factor for this movie aside from the fact that friggin' Ezekiel Sims got a dream that keeps recurring, and that's it.
Yeah, he's like, "I don't want to die, so I'm gonna kill these people." Which, yeah, the movie's just like, "Oh, he's just a bad guy." Like they keep hinting at something that might have been interesting of like him connecting to these other. I guess
Mhm.
only two of them might be people who could be considered poor, but like
Yeah.
he's just like, "Nah, I'm just gonna kill these girls." Which he's the bad guy, so sure. It's not like I don't understand where he's coming from.
Yeah.
But they're so dedicated to him just being a bad guy and having no other like interesting qualities whatsoever or
Yeah,
personality beyond, as I keep saying, I used to be poor, I'm not going back to that.
Yeah, like the only thing the movie was like well aware of is like, yeah, he killed a pregnant woman. So like, so
And it
we
seemed like
gotta
he wanted to
make it.
kill the baby because of the way he shoots at
That,
her
yeah,
belly and
right.
then gets upset when he's like, "No, you can't be alive." I'm like, dude, like,
What are you
what?
doing? Yeah, it's like if you're gonna be selfish and a villain, just do it all the way already. Don't be like, oh, I shot you like in the chest, so slightly above the womb, so your baby. Like, no, it's just you wanted to kill everyone, and you just had regrets about killing a pregnant woman, but you still killed a
Did
pregnant
he have
woman.
regrets about that? I don't think he had regrets
He
about
didn't
it.
want to, which is why he took so long to fire the
I
gun, but
don't
ultimately
think
he
he didn't.
did.
I think you might be misreading that. I think his whole thing was,
Maybe.
I'm going to kill everybody, and you're annoying me by not just giving this to me and leaving me alone. And then he's
Yes.
like, all right, I'm going to kill you then. And I don't think he regrets it at all. I think he was just like, just give it to me.
Yeah.
No? Okay, you're dying.
Yeah.
And then
That's
she was pulling his gun, so it looks like he's fighting it, but it's more just like, I need to make sure I kill you with this shot.
there's, there's a one handgun that holds 12 rounds. I only fired three,
Yeah.
and therefore the remaining like
Maybe he
nine
didn't
shots
trust that
are.
he'd be able to shoot her if she was running.
Oh
Maybe he's like, I
God.
need them to just be right in front of me or standing still.
In just what world am I imagining this evil dude is physically threatened by a pregnant woman? I'm just like, what is happening here? You could just easily have run. She's clearly in no shape to pursue you. She had a contraction earlier. Like, what are you doing? It's
That
so
was
weird.
the way she delivers. Like, she doesn't want me to finish my job. Like,
I
I
know.
know that you've written this so that we don't know that she's doing this for her daughter, but it just doesn't make sense that in that moment she wouldn't say something reassuring like, "Oh, don't worry, baby. Like, I'm gonna help you." Like, it's so clearly written so that we are purposely misled instead of what we talked about with Doom Patrol, where it's like, "Oh, coming back to this scene, I understand how those exact words could be misconstrued without context." But it's like,
Yeah.
no, it literally is just they wrote that so that you think she's a workaholic and doesn't want a silly thing like being pregnant to get in the way of her job.
Yeah, yeah, like independent woman kind of thing. Like I'm not gonna let my ninth month of pregnancy slow me down in in
Yeah.
a rainforest. I'm just like, this is stupid. I already hate this character, and there's nothing to go off of. It's like it would have been helpful if we knew that the mom was actually doing something for her daughter. You know what I mean? So it
Mm-hmm.
would have been like, in I to be fair, that would have made Dakota Cassie's character waste. Like we would have hated her more because it's like your
But
mom was
you
trying
could
to
at
help
least be
you.
like, oh, it's gonna be so great when she learns what her mom was actually doing. Like that is a common story thing of like
100%.
our hero doesn't know the full extent of like how someone cares for them, and then
Mhm.
that's that's good cathartic stuff. I'm not saying that would have landed in a movie like this, but it could have been something they attempted.
It could have been, and that's what I hoped that they would have done eventually. But I'm just like, this sucks. It just feels like the mom didn't want Cassie. And so it's just like, what do I care about this? But the only thing I do care about right now is the mom. And knowing that Cassie just like that the baby turns into Cassie later on, I'm just like, this is the most ineffective time jump ever. Because now, like you said earlier, like we have to be told that she hates her mom. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, why do you hate your mom? She died during childbirth. It's just like, that's of
That was
all
my
the
other thing. Was
things.
like she doesn't have any time with her mom, and
Yeah.
sure, people could talk to her about her mom, but you don't know that she knows anyone that knew her mom.
Yeah,
Like
she was in
she's
foster care. I
yeah,
expect that
but
she didn't.
that's so yeah. That's my thing. Is like a lot of it only works if she had a mom at like 5 years old
Hmm.
that died, like Sydney Sweeney's character. Like
I
you
agree.
would have to have some baseline of knowing your mom.
Yes. Like Sydney Sweeney's character, what's her face?
That's Cornwall, right?
Cornwall. Yeah, yeah, Julia Cornwall. I'm like, her character makes more sense for someone that would hate their mom. It's just like, okay. And I like the fact that she was like, my mom, when they broke a divorce with my dad, she didn't take it well, landed in a mental
Oh yeah,
hospital,
sorry,
all
her
that kind
mom
of stuff.
didn't die. That
She
I
didn't die. She
misspoke.
landed in a mental hospital. But the
It's
idea,
it's Anya Corazon's mom who died when she was
yes,
5. Yeah. Okay,
yeah, but
I
the idea
misspoke.
of like Julia Cornwall's mom being like, "No, I resent you because all this kind of stuff," that would have made more sense to me. Even though she's not, that would have made more sense. Dakota Johnson's character, Cassandra Webb, is just like, wait, you hate your mom for her dying in childbirth, like that. That's so
No,
selfish.
she hates her for being a workaholic. That's what I mean. Like that's clearly the movie's stance. Is she hates her mom for being a workaholic and not staying home during her last month of her pregnancy. That she has dialogue about that. Like she's glibly saying, "Oh, well, you know, she took her last month of pregnancy to go to the Amazon." That's what this movie is saying. It's just it doesn't make sense for her to feel that strongly about someone who had no time with her, really.
I
like
completely agree.
She would have resentment towards her foster parents that she got kicked around before she would have any like long. Sorry, maybe I can't speak for anyone. Maybe that's it. But I do think that's what the movie's coming down on, is the resentment that she didn't just stay home and be safe. But that's not truly clear until she says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I hated you this whole time." And I'm like, "You did? Oh, okay."
Yeah, like none of that becomes clear until like the second/third act, where you're like, wait, that was like, and I hate the fact that earlier in the conversation, like earlier in the movie, she says to Ben, like, why does this sound like every therapy session that I don't want to go to? I'm like, see, this is on you. This is completely on you. The idea of like, you know what advice you need to be taking, and you're not doing it, and you're resenting it, and you're trying to be a loner and all that kind of stuff. I get that she's got this trauma from childhood, but I'm like, no part of this movie makes me believe that she's a likable person in any capacity.
No,
and that
I feel like the movie is trying to make it clear she's not likable. Like, and that
it's a terrible premise for a movie. It's a terrible premise. I'm like, what?
Like when she won't accept the drawing from the kid, and even Ben says a terrible thing right in front of them, and I'm just like, yeah, like why wouldn't that be her? Like that would have been better storytelling if she took it and then threw it out.
Yeah.
But the fact that you have another character who's supposed to be the good guy being like, just take it and throw it out later. I'm like, she couldn't have come up with that on her own. Like, she feels unlikable and also just dumb. And so, as you said, it's not a great place to put your main character.
It's a terrible place because it's not only that, she's just like, oh my God, you're dumb. You need this reassurance. But it's just, are we meant to hate all paramedics in this situation? Because I don't understand why Ben Parker would have said that. Parker. Exactly, but why? I don't understand why.
That's a terrible line to give Ben Parker, but I think everything else in the movie you're supposed to be like, okay, I mean, you know who Ben Parker is, so you obviously like him anyway, but
care more about him anyways, because you're like, I see how this character would be relevant in the future. Versus Madam Web's like, I don't think you're relevant at all.
Yeah, I guess it just sucks that they had to cut the stuff that I heard was going to be a more Terminator, like them trying to keep his sister-in-law alive.
And that would have been actually kind of cool, but then you're just like, oh wait, because I was going into the movie thinking
those three girls. Like you could just be focused on Sims. Is Ezekiel Sims is like, she's gonna give birth to Spider-Man. He's gonna ruin things for me.
Yeah,
I'm just gonna stop him from being born.
But I assume the only reason why they couldn't do that is because they couldn't actually use Spider-Man on screen.
Well, no, it's what I said up top. They fucked up the timeline.
Yeah, 100%.
And it was like, that was the whole thing. Is it's going to be Andrew Garfield?
Yeah,
and then they were like, well,
so silly.
Can't be 2003, but we've already committed to 2003, so I don't know. Let's just patch this together and get it out, and then people will forget about it.
Yeah, I'm like, why are they setting this in 2003? This makes no sense.
I get why they would need to set it back in time. It just doesn't make sense why no one working on it understood how time works.
Yeah, they didn't go
if you want it to be Andrew Garfield, you gotta go further back.
Yeah, I'm just saying that they didn't go far back enough. They should have been like late 80s or something like that. That to me would have been like, all right, I can see where this is starting to come from. You have like, but then you obviously don't have the NSA thing that they're so reliant on, which is just like, oh, this is dumb. This whole NSA thing is
quick
dumb.
Fix for that is just he actually has the powers that you thought he had, and then you don't need that stuff.
But he can't do that because then he's a completely ineffective fighter, because every single time he's just getting knocked around by stuff that she's like, oh, watch out. It's stupid.
I like that he just kept getting hit by cars. I like that she was like, I can't actually fight this guy. I thought there was going to be scenes where she was like foolish enough to try and fight him.
Yeah.
I mean, the diner scene, no, she doesn't try to fight them.
No, she just straight up hits him with a car.
He's sad. I kind of like that she's like, I'll just hit him with a car. Like, and then I'll blow him up at the end. At
I
no point am I
completely
going to
believe
try and
that.
engage him in a fight. I don't think
Yes.
it makes great for a great movie, but
Mhm.
at least I'm like, at least you know your limits. Like, I
Yep.
think she even says, like, I'm not going to be able to fight this guy. And the guy was like, yep, you're right. She's like, great. I'll be hitting with cars then.
Yeah. It's just like, okay, cool. That part, but no part of me is like, oh, okay, you dodged stuff, but you didn't foresee that thing hitting him if you dodged. You know what I mean? And by that point in the movie, I'm just, I want this movie to be over. Like the fact that she went to Peru in the second act, I'm like, no, this is terrible. Why are we doing this?
Yeah, I was really upset about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I. What else happens? The movie is so straight. It's almost 2 hours, but it just feels like. I honestly was like, maybe this needs to be a TV show. I know this director did stuff for Jessica Jones. I
Mhm.
forgot to look up what season because to me there's a huge drop off for Jessica Jones.
Yes.
Oh, she did Defenders too. I am famously not a fan of Defenders. It's so weird that she's legitimately part of Marvel stuff, but couldn't get this off the ground.
Well, I mean, the point of this again was to maintain Sony's kind of like deal with Marvel with the Spider-Man universe and all that kind of stuff. So it's not quality. It's just like, all right, here's a gimme that we're gonna let you do.
She did the pilot and second episode of. She did the first season of Jessica Jones. Like that's legitimately my favorite Netflix show. Is the first season of Jessica Jones. Like this is what I'm saying. Like it seems like she would have to absorb some way. I know that in general Jessica Jones wasn't interested in being superhero heavy, but they made it work. And
Right.
this movie just feels like people are giving up.
Yeah. And that's yeah. I'm not yeah, I completely agree. It's like, oh, they just casted some big, I guess, Gen Z names in this and hoped that it would pull people in. And to its credit, there were a few people in there. I'm like, oh, you're here for this? And speaking like, oh, okay, you're young and you're a group of girls and you're here for this movie right now. I'm like, that was surprising to me. And I know because it wouldn't shut up through the whole movie. And I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I don't even care that you're talking right now because I'm not invested in this whatsoever. This is just an awful movie.
I felt like my theater was restless as well.
Yeah.
Just it's to me it should have been a TV show if this is what they're in, but obviously Sony doesn't have their own
Mhm.
streaming service that it would make sense to put this on, but it
Yeah.
really did feel like
Yeah.
by the end of it I'm like, okay, yeah, so then the next episode you see them actually become a team because why would we waste 2 hours on this?
Yeah. That's the worst part. That's the most egregious part is like nobody gets their powers except for Madam Web, she doesn't get like any she has the same powers with the whole thing.
It's just she is able to we don't
she's able to
she's
control
able
it
to
and be
use her powers
snarky.
properly. Like she does it at the end where he said you could be in multiple places at one time and she's like,
Yep.
okay, I'll save them then. And I don't think I'm smart for this, but I was just like, oh, when are they gonna have to do CPR on someone? Because of that scene where she just teaches and I'm like, they've never had like a lifeguard job or something. Like it just seems like she's giving information that literally everyone knows.
Okay, well, to the people that she was with, I'm like, okay, this actually makes sense. This is something that she knows very well. It's something that could help. It's like the idea of Maddie and Julia being privileged kids that are richer. I'm like, yeah, they wouldn't have a life-saving job or whatever. They wouldn't be relied on for that. The Anya character, to me, I'm like, okay, it's a little bit more believable that you might have it, but even then, I'm just like,
they were like, she does math, and I'm like, great. So she wouldn't have like a summer camp that she go. This is what I mean. Like, I feel like there was just things in that privileged life that would lead you to come across. This is how you do CPR, even if you don't retain it. They were acting like this is some new shit you just dropped on us. Holy shit! Thank you so much.
Yeah, and I like the fact she's like, "You're a good teacher." I'm like, "No, she's not. That's a terrible way to teach CPR."
That was the other thing. Is like, you're a good teacher. I'm like,
Really?
What? She just wasn't mean to you.
Yeah.
She'd been mean to you this whole time, that she just wasn't mean to you and smiled at you. Like, she's not a good teacher.
And that's what the trauma bond is, baby.
No, I agree with you that they trauma bonded with her.
Yes.
I'm saying she just felt like she was like not interested until she was like, yeah, whatever, they're my daughters.
100%. She's just
They
like,
definitely trauma bonded. That is
yeah.
100% true.
Yeah, she was like, all right, I better teach these kids CPR because I'm already being rung up on kidnapping charges, so I can't have any of them die."
That also just gets dropped. Like, it's just not a thing.
It gets dropped so fast.
It's not a thing. Like, I think the one time I was mad at the girls was when they were it was very clear, like, we gotta hide our identities, and then Maddie's just looking out the car with her face completely visible. I'm like, what was the point of the hood? You have the hood up, so you know you should be hiding. Why are you just looking out straight? Like, what a terrible, like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, they do show you that she's the most immature out of all of them, and I'm just like, all right, whatever it is, her that would give it away.
It's too late in the movie for her to like not understand what needs to happen.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. I never at any given point in time heard any of them say, "Oh, he's got tracking us through cameras" or anything like that. It's just like, why did they go to the woods if they didn't know that? It worked for them, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, why'd you just drop 3 teenagers in the woods and go like, "I'll be right back" in like 5 hours?
I think she was just hoping that it wasn't like a public place, like a diner with a bunch of people in it, where it was just like, it's just out of the way. To your point, I don't think it was them being like, this will make sure that he won't be able to like track us. At one point, yes, they are concerned about using cell phones that can be tracked, because she takes her phone and throws it out the window.
Yeah.
And Anya is like, they can track you through that. So it is something they are aware of. It's not exactly facial recognition they're worried about, but they are worried about being on the grid and being tracked.
Right. Which to me, I'm just like, this is a dumb decision by Cassandra. Because I'm just like, you're leaving.
Just her being like, I'm going to leave you for 3 hours.
It's a terrible decision.
Surely just being together would be easier.
Yeah.
No. Not for the person in the movie that doesn't want to be there. But
yeah,
if you're legitimately thinking about this, why would it be easier for you to leave for 3 hours and then just expect them to stay there, and then look what ends up happening? You're still gonna have to track them down.
Yeah.
And then they try to make her look like some like Wolverine tracker when she's like, oh, their footprints are going this way. I'm like, there's just no way you would have seen like enough footprints.
Yeah, and or even the idea of just knowing how to track footprints there. I'm just like, no, you're a city girl born in New York, right? There's no way you have that skill set. I believe the freaking like flash forward time jump power thing that she has to be like, oh, okay, they're here. Way more than like, oh, look at the tracks. I'm like, the only thing that was indicating that they went anywhere or in any particular direction was the bag of like jerky. And that was one thing. That's not a trail. It's so
yeah, it definitely was not a trail. It was just like, oh, they finished the jerky.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, and the other thing too that I thought was hilarious was like, okay, you remember earlier in the movie when like Mike Epps is having the cookout and the whatever, and Cassandra's like, oh, he's screwing up the burgers by smashing them, which he was. But then the idea of like, okay, so and she brings up the idea of like, oh, it could start a fire risk and all that kind of stuff. Cool. Y'all are just leaving an open fire in the woods and just walking away from it. Like that's what they did.
Fire. I didn't even remember.
There was a fire in the middle. I'm like, this is heavily inconsistent of your character. Like, why would you just leave a fire?
They weren't there for the fire hazard thing, were they? Or are you saying the girl said that's a fire?
No, because Cassandra said it was a fire hazard.
By the time they started a fire.
No, they started a fire. No, she gets back to the location. The fire's going, and she just leaves again.
Oh, that part, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just like, this is terrible. Like, what is going on here? This is so dumb and not at all safe for anything. But that's her character.
What else
happened? Unlikable woman that is thrust in charge of the Babysitters Club.
Yeah, I don't know what, like, I know that Dakota Johnson looks like a cover of a Madame Web comic, but it just felt like is that how she is in the comics? Like, I know she's a bit spicy and like isn't necessarily like nurturing, but
Mhm.
from admittedly just knowing her from the cartoon, I don't know her in any other form. I just know her from the cartoon,
Right.
where it's like she's still like, I need you to do something for me, and you're gonna do this, as
Mhm.
opposed to leave me alone, please.
Yep.
And how many times do those kids have to tell you they don't have parents before you stop saying, just your parents can deal with this?
Yeah, that was
It feels like they
weird.
did that 2 or 3 times, and I'm just like, you, they don't have parents. Like, no, their parents aren't going to deal with this.
Yeah, and
I'm glad she at least switched to, oh, just go to the police. Then I'm like, I wouldn't do that, but I'm glad she thought like, oh, whatever. If you don't have parents, just get the police to deal with this.
well, I mean, one of her dreams was her abandoning them in the motel and being like, y'all take care of this. Like, I saved your life. That go. I'm just gonna abandon you now. Three
Yeah, that's what I
girls.
was asking about. So that is a dream. I thought that like
That is a
I couldn't
dream.
tell if it was a dream or if it happened and she just came back and it was bad editing.
No, it was a dream. And
Okay.
that's what, and like, this is terrible because she full on, and this is the part that I'm like, okay, Ezekiel must have powers because Ezekiel full on has a conversation with her in that dream, and I'm like, all right, so this is the spider connectedness thing, so he's got a
But I
version of
think
her
that was
power.
her doing that.
Yeah, but wouldn't he have to interact too, or have
No,
some
because
version?
she can talk to her mom too.
Oh yeah, that's right. That part made no sense either.
No,
It's like,
again,
right.
I'm not gonna get into what her powers are or how they work. If you believe that he has powers too, sure. I just think the movie was trying to be like, she can do this. The problem with the movie is at no point is she in control of her powers until like the last seconds of the movie. So it's hard for us as the audience to parse like how anything is happening or why.
Mhm.
It's just like, well, she's figuring it out. Or and then sometimes she's not figuring it out, it's just happening to her.
Yep. And I do like in the end where okay, yeah, she can get in multiple places at one time. I'm like,
But he
why
can
did you
still
do
punch
that?
you in the stomach and stop it. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
I'm like, why
what?
did you do that right in front of him? He's just like, what do you think he's gonna do? Like, just
I just
watch you
didn't
do that and
understand
get
why she couldn't
overwhelmed?
protect herself. Like,
I didn't understand why she didn't astral project a version of, or a couple of versions of herself to hold him back while
this
she's
is what I
doing it,
mean. Like, how
right?
did she was just like,
I'm
sure,
gonna float
maybe,
here for a little bit, and
yeah.
he punches her in the stomach. And I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, she
Also,
clear.
he should have just killed her there. 100. I mean, I guess
Oh,
he didn't have any
100%.
object, but like that seems like a perfect time to try and continue the Venom thing.
Yeah, like that was like, to me, I'm like, this seems like a really funny throwback to earlier where Maddie's character just like throws something at her and be like, see, you can't tell the future. And I'm like, yeah, that's actually really good. It just comes back to bite her in the ass later on in the movie. I'm gonna punch you in the stomach. I'm like, this is terrible.
I a lot of it did feel like it was a joke. Like it was
Yes,
like this feels like it would be in a show where they're making fun of comic book movies.
I agree.
Oh, that's the
Which,
other thing I wanted to mention. I
yeah,
saw a headline being like, "Superhero fatigue has truly set in with this movie," and I'm like, "That's not.
I don't think
That's not
that's
what's.
true.
I don't think that's what superhero fatigue means. I've always understood superhero fatigue to mean that the audience doesn't care for it anymore. But
Yep,
not liking a bad movie doesn't mean that you have a fatigue for the.
I completely agree.
Unless he's saying like the studios have superhero fatigue and they're just doing it to do it. But I don't. Yeah, I guess I'm not aware of superhero fatigue. If this is like the other problem is people were like Quantumania, the Marvels. This is all superhero fatigue. I'm like, yeah, you're tired of it. That's not doesn't mean everyone's tired of it. And a bad movie doesn't make it. Like, yeah, I just don't understand how this would be the same thing as the other two movies I mentioned. Those two
It's
movies.
definitely not. It's definitely not. I agree with you. This is not a case of superhero fatigue, for the reason why it won't succeed. It's the fact that this movie doesn't know what it's supposed to do, and it overpromises things that doesn't actually happen in the movie. Like the fact that the three teenagers are shown constantly in that dream sequence with powers, you're thinking, oh, they're gonna get some sort of powers through the course of this movie and do something to it. Nope,
No,
none of that happens. And you're just like, wait, so this is basically a teaser for the second one, and they think they're getting it a second one where all three of these girls actually get, like, now we're gonna tell the story about how they get their power. Like, no, this is not gonna happen.
no,
It's a
I don't think there's. I don't think anyone's coming back to this story ever again.
I mean, the people that have to review it do, but like,
As
if
in, I don't
it
think
ever gets
anyone who
made,
made this is coming back to it.
I agree. I agree with that. Like
Uh,
the concept of like Terminator style, like we have to protect Peter from being from actually being born. That's actually a cool premise for a movie. I would have liked that, but they did not commit to any of that whatsoever, and just like, oh, it's all about the three girls, and like three girls are inconsequential to everything, and the only time that it's like, oh, Peter, like Mary, right, might die right now. It's just like, oh, okay, you told her to get as far as away from here as possible, and
I
that's all you
didn't
needed
even
to do.
think there was a danger of her dying. Not because I know who she is and who she's going to give birth to. I just thought that the movie even admitted there's no tension here because he's not after you guys. You have nothing to do with him dying. So
The only
just go over
tension,
there and he'll just follow me. Like I think you've already said it, but like she actively says like, oh, just go away because he's not after you. He's just gonna
yeah,
follow me.
the
And
only time she was in trouble was like, oh, why are you going near Ben and Mary? Like, that's why she's remotely in any kind of trouble is because you're close to them. If you get away from them, that they will not be in trouble anymore. Which is just like,
well,
oh,
the girls need to be away from them, which that's the difference. She wasn't with the girls at that point.
yes, yeah. But like the only time, what I'm saying is the only time that the fetus of Peter was in trouble was when they were around him. If she was never around them, it would have been like, oh, okay,
But that's the
Peter's not even on
distinction
the
I'm
blip on
making
the
is
radar.
you keep saying she, but it's the three girls who were left in their care.
Okay, yes. But she also puts Ben Parker in charge of them when she's flying off to Peru. So I'm
Okay,
just
so we're
like,
saying
yeah,
the
it's
same
all,
thing then.
yeah,
We don't
we're
have to
saying
keep
the same thing.
defining it.
It's
I'm
she's
saying
driven by the
it's
same thing.
not. She's not. Her presence isn't the danger. It's her decision to leave those kids with him.
Correct.
Yeah.
I'm just like I get at that point going to Peru by herself because I'm like, yeah, you're not gonna be able to get passports to these three kids, and then you got the one, the one
That
kid
might
that's
get
like
deported. Yeah.
exactly that you're like, hey, oh yeah, she can't exist legally until she's 18 because she doesn't have her cards, her papers, and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, that's an interesting premise, but yeah, we'll just dump them off to Ben. Nope, we'll just do that. I'm
Like
like,
how she's like, "Thanks, Ben. You didn't ask for this," and he's like, "Neither did you." And I'm like, what is this? What is this writing?
yeah,
Why
what is
why are
this
they
over
constantly
understanding of
undercutting
this?
themselves with writing like that?
Exactly. Like, why did Ben say that? I was like, what? The idea she's like, oh yeah, you didn't ask for any of this. I'm like, this is so you're not going to try to put a better apology in. That's it. It's oh God, it's so weird. It's so weird. I,
Yeah.
I don't get this. I don't get this movie. It-
No. It's hard because there's not really I don't think like other movies we talked about there's much to dig into because even more so than Aquaman 2, it feels like
yeah.
they just don't care. Like I feel like James Wan has a level of caring in whatever he puts out, so I
Mhm.
can't fully be like, oh, they didn't fully care about that movie.
Mhm.
It's just more just the studio that he put that movie out didn't care, so there's a bunch of nonsense. But like this movie just feels like no one cared about it
Yeah.
particularly.
Yeah. It's it's
Other than I
sad.
think people said the Anya character feels the most like she understood the assignment, and I'm like, that's like Isabel Merced or whatever. Like
Mhm.
I think she has the most interesting storyline, but the movie is not interested in giving her much time to do anything. Like as you said, like the three girls feel inconsequential, even though they're the point. They had, I mean, it feels like they had to shift so that they were the point and they were
Mhm.
the targets of Ezekiel Sims. But uh, yeah, like she feels the most interesting. Exactly what you said. Like I'm not allowed to exist till I'm 18, so there's just a feeling of needing to really protect her, and she's the only one that's ever like, I don't need anyone to protect. And or she even says at the end, like, we'll protect each other. You don't have to protect me. It felt like there was something there that they
Mhm.
just kept backing off of.
Yeah, yeah, they just brush by that really, really quick. It's just like, oh, we need to give you the audience a reason as to why these three teenage girls are completely alone, and that's basically it.
Another nitpick I have is I understand that people can like things before it hits the radio, but the whole toxic scene was like they made a point of putting on the radio the guy being like, "This is gonna be a big hit one day," and then having it that Maddie's trying to make it call Anya out and be like, don't lie, I know you know the words. I'm like, but maybe she doesn't. Like maybe you're a Britney Spears fan and it hasn't been all over the radio yet. And she, but it's like, no, she knows the words. They're all singing and dancing. I'm like, I just feel like that doesn't work. You can't have the radio guy put in my head that this is before Toxic was a hit, and then follow it up with, no, you know the words. I know you do.
It's so silly to me because I'm like, are we pretending that this is like not peak era Britney where everyone knows who Britney is and Toxic, like everyone loved it right off the bat. And it's like, this is, why did he even say like this is going to be a big hit? I'm like, of course it is. It's Britney Spears. Like, have you not been paying attention since like Baby Hit Me One More Time? Like,
I guess it's more just if you're trying to give the characters levels, maybe one character out of those three teenage girls, because they're not a monolith, doesn't care about Britney Spears.
Yep.
And so then she would only know the words because it was like forced down her throat by continuous radio airplay. But then they were like, no, it's not. It hasn't hit that level yet.
Yeah, I would have wanted one of these girls to be into grunge or something like that. You know what I mean? That would have been like, oh, okay, it's not a teenage girl monolith here, even though you got like different versions of them.
And or like the Sydney Sweeney character, like truly being like, oh, like guys are looking at me. I like the attention, but then it's like this doesn't really play into anything ever again, which again is an interesting thing they could have got into.
And I will say also, in what world do three teenage girls get on a diner table and nobody tells them to get down? That's the most ridiculous thing. I'm like, why is everyone just going along with this right now?
It's ridiculous and like obstructive, but two, like the owner would be like, I don't need you guys falling down and hurting yourselves, and then
exactly,
I don't know, get down.
Yeah, get down from there. It's like that's it. It made no sense to me. I'm like, why are we doing this right now? Why are they dancing on tables? Just let them dance, sure, but on top of the table.
They do a version of it where no, they're always dancing on the table. But I just feel like there's a version of it where they're just distracted because they liked the attention from the boys.
Yeah,
and then he comes in and they're like, oh shit, we should have been more vigilant.
Yeah, to which none of that would have actually tried, because the idea of like, oh, okay, yeah, maybe we should have stayed in the woods.
But they're already there, and that's the whole point, is they were there, and a guy reading a newspaper is like, oh, those are the girls that everyone's looking for, so he calls it in, and then Ezekiel Sims can get that. So I'm saying, like, to the extent that I understand that as kids they're not going to be like, we should just stay put, we're going to just go do something, that makes sense that they're in the diner. I just feel like, as you said, the dancing on the table and everyone being okay with it didn't sit well with me either. And you could do that whole sequence of events without them dancing on a table.
Yeah. And like, let's be honest, they were getting enough attention because like, I liked how when they brought out all the food, Maddie was like, keep it coming. I'm like, surely
I hated
that was terrible. I'm just like, surely you must have known that food doesn't work. The restaurants don't work like that.
Yeah, like, what do you mean keep it coming?
That's
like,
so stupid.
It's not like a drink. Like, you could say that on a drink.
Yeah.
She can say it on anything, really. It doesn't matter. But it didn't make sense for, like, because they showed that they each were having, like, different things.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, each one of the girls seemed to have different kinds of dishes. So what do you mean keep it coming? Like,
exactly.
You be more specific than that.
It's so stupid. It's like keep it coming. It's like, do you think if you say that they'll just give you random food and put right in front of you? Like, it makes no sense. It was
acting
so
like she's never been
dumb.
in a restaurant before.
I know, right? It's just it was so dumb. But I mean, at least it was consistent. It was a consistently dumb movie.
Sure, yeah, I'll give you that. It's not a. It does not inspire much thought. Okay, it begs you to just shut off your brain.
Yeah, that's when I started enjoying the movie and just laughing at it, because I'm just like, oh, do I have to do some mental labor right now? And the more I did, I'm like, I am just projecting common sense onto this movie, and that's not fair. I need to receive this movie as it is, which is just a flaming hot pile of garbage.
I mean, one thing I'll give this movie is, of all these, like, I don't remember what they call it, like Spum or whatever, where it's like Spider-Man adjacent, but he's not in them. At least technically Peter Parker is in this movie. He is on screen. He is born. Venom and Morbius can't say the same thing.
That's true.
They tried and they couldn't do it, and here we go, Madam Web got there.
I like the weird thing how like they never were able to say the word Peter.
You like that? That's stupid.
I'm saying that sarcastically. I
Okay.
liked it because it was so dumb and awkward and uncomfortable. I'm like, of course we know that's Peter. I get the whole like, oh, okay, in the
I
whole
thought
baby
Madam
shower
Web was
part.
gonna just guess Peter.
That's
Like
what I thought.
when she looked outside, I'm like, is Mike Epps named Peter or something? Like what? It seemed like she was looking, and then they just did the whole no, we're just running it back, and I'm like, what?
Yeah. That felt more
Anyway,
like, oh, I wish I was out there with the guys instead of trapped in here
yeah,
with that's
that
what it
is
felt
what
like
it
more
is.
than
It's
anything.
just more I didn't understand. I thought like, oh, they'll show that she's already kind of in the fortune telling ways of being like, I don't know, Peter, and even if Mary didn't confirm, just her being like, oh, and then like moving on or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they don't ever say his name, but yes, Peter Parker is in this movie technically.
Yeah. And I do like actually, and this is just like a little side thing about how Mary actually involves her. It's like, I see you're uncomfortable, let's involve you and all. Like, I'm like, that's a good host. You're doing good
Yeah, because
stuff.
no
But
one
why
was
come
really
back to
talking
her
to her.
again? Yeah. Why come back to her after the whole like, oh, my mom died. That's not gonna happen to you thing. I'm like, oh, you're really trying to involve her for some reason. This makes no sense to me, but whatever. It's
I
fine.
think she was trying to give her a chance to recover from that nonsense. So, like, I thought it was hilarious. I really,
Yeah.
genuinely thought that was a good bit of comedy where she kept fumbling over, like, speaking her truth, but also like trying to spare her of the feelings of a woman who's about to give birth.
Yeah, yeah, and like I get why they casted Dakota Johnson in this, like because she's cold and all this kind of stuff. There's nothing off her, but I'm like, that's the Madam Web we ultimately do know, and that's at like when she's got powers and all that kind of stuff. But when you're doing it during her youth and all that during the development, it's just like, oh, so she just can say she stays consistent the entire time as a character. She's cold and distant from everything and everyone.
I just, again, I'm just basing this off the cartoon. I don't think that properly characterizes that character.
That's fair. But
I think that character is having fun, and even if she's not having fun, she's so in command of what's happening that she's not asking you to do anything. She's like, no, this is what's going to happen. You're going to do this for me. And she's very much engaged with the people she's talking to. She might not be nice to them, but she's there. Whereas this character is constantly like, I just don't want to have to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this. I don't want to deal with this.
Yeah. She doesn't even want the stray cat that she's feeding. It's like, oh yeah, you're a stray. You and I got to stay together. I'm like, then adopt a cat. Like,
she was a little too comfortable with letting like just animals come into her house. Like,
I know, especially
when the
that pigeon
was
thing.
in there, I was like, get it out. What do you just?
Yeah,
that's gross. You live in New York City. You know that's gross.
Yeah, you got a freaking flying rat in your whole like kitchen now, and you're just like, oh, cool. I guess
While you were
prevented that from happening.
It's just popcorn, but she was still about to eat some food.
Yeah,
like, you just got this thing like the flying rat going around in your room, and even with the cat, I know they made a point of making it look like a fancy cat, but I'm like, you don't know what that cat's been like rolling in. Like,
yeah.
It's just gonna be right there on your table that you probably ate off of. Nah,
yeah,
not for me.
Yeah, you're just giving it like this milk you have lying around. Like, this is weird. It's
someone's hungry. Like, is it hungry or thirsty?
Yeah, like pick a lane here. This is dumb. It's so bad. Yeah. Yeah.
Also, when I had a cat, I was told you're not actually supposed to give them milk, which I'm sure it wouldn't kill that cat if it had it every once in a while with her, but I'm just like, you need to put water out for this cat.
Yeah.
It's not healthy to give it milk.
But yeah, I mean, this movie is just it. That, it's a movie.
I like when they asked, like, hey, how come you didn't do a post-credit scene? I shouldn't have brought this up. I don't have the quote, but it was like, it looked like an AI response. Like, it was like, we like that it did not when you do this. And it was like, that's not a human thought that was just put out there. But yeah, there's no post credit or mid credit either. It
I'm
really is just like it's done. You can go home.
I'm
Don't
so
worry about
glad. I'm so glad that we live in the day and age of like I can just Google while the credits are rolling to be like, is there a post credit screen?
Afterthecredits.com. I love that site.
Yeah, I'm just
After-
like, great. I now know if there is something worth staying for, if not, and just like because everyone else was just like default, we're staying for post
Oh
credits.
yeah, I was the only one that left during the credits.
Yeah, and I'm
People were
like,
like, well, yeah, I got to get something out of this. Morbius is going to show up, right?
yeah, you did. I mean, you were watching Madam Web on Valentine's Day. That's all you're gonna get.
Yeah. Well, let's rate this movie.
Oh.
I'm gonna give it a 2.5.
Yeah, this is like a 3. It's a
Great.
3.
Excellent.
I have no basis of how I got there. I'm just like, it's definitely not higher than a 4.
No, it's not. It's not. It is not good. They did not need to make this.
No.
Well, thank you very much for listening. We're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network with other great shows like Bag A Movies, Contra Zoom Pod, Springfield, Googleplex. So please go to thatshelf.com. You'll find those shows, our show, and more shows. If you want to hear older episodes of our show, you can go to tdfereverything.com/spoiledrotten or hit up whatever podcast catcher you like to use. We're probably on there. You can rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends, do all that great stuff, and listen. And then if you want to get in touch with us, we are at TDF Spoiled on Twitter, Instagram, and Threads, and our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. Yeah, we'll be back. Luckily not talking about Madam Web. All right. Goodbye.
Hopefully. Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.